Want to level up your note-taking in class? You are in the right place. Here are my key strategies for note-taking during a live college lecture. Along with a quick chat about handwritten versus digital notes, which is better, I'm going to share tips for before, during, and after the lecture so that you can start maximizing your learning and minimizing that note-taking stress. So let's jump in. First, let's talk note-taking mediums. Some students are all about that laptop. Others swear by the tablet. And still other students rock the old school pencil and paper. Bottom line, as long as you're taking notes, any of these are fine. So pick the one that is most effective and efficient for you, the one you will actually use. But research does show that handwritten notes have an advantage. They are generally more purposeful. They require us to use more parts of our brain. And they're also usually more flexible when it comes to drawing figures or creating a visual structure for our notes. They also have the natural benefit of helping us stay focused. Our brains aren't constantly tempted to distraction by other tabs, apps, or notifications. The con of handwritten notes is that it can be more difficult to process through a lot of information and find key pieces of information when you are studying before an exam. This is because they are not searchable like digital notes are. Thankfully, there are a couple of solutions to this. First, there are now paper notebooks that are connected to apps. And basically the way these work is you write in the notebook just as you would a regular notebook, but they have a QR code or some other app system where you take an image and it puts it into a digital form that is then searchable. And this is a great option if you like that hard copy experience of writing handwritten notes, but you also want the advantage of searching. Now, the second approach to this problem is a little more time consuming, but it's also more beneficial to learning. And that's the old school approach of typing out your notes after you have written them by hand. What this does is it gives your brain another chance to actively process the material as you are entering it in from handwritten form into digital form. And it also gives you a chance to better understand the structure of all of the material and organize it in a meaningful way. So if you want to level up your learning, this may want to be a strategy you consider. So now let's jump into those before, during, and after tips. So I know it may not be exciting, but something that does wonders for feeling like you're keeping up with the lecture and actually getting it during class is reading the assigned material, the assigned textbook chapter before that class period. So why does this help so much? Think about your brain like a filing system. In a filing system, whether one on your computer or one of those old school filing cabinets, you create folders to organize documents, to organize files. Now, it takes some time, some work, some effort to create your system at first, to create and label those folders, to decide on the categories. But once you have your system in place, it becomes so much easier to organize and file new information to where it belongs as it is coming in. So when you read before class, you are basically giving your brain a chance to create the filing system it needs to organize that material, and you then have that filing system in place when you are heading into the lecture on that topic. Now, the first way this filing system helps note-taking is by giving you an understanding of the material's structure before the lecture even starts. And this is helpful because the order that information is presented in the textbook or in the reading is likely mirrored in the lecture itself. So you will find yourself knowing where the professor is leading or what will come next, and that makes note-taking and organizing your notes in real time so much easier. Having these folders already in place also helps in the midst of the lecture when the prof starts talking about different examples or alternative takes on a theory or different perspectives. You already know where to file those new pieces of information, and you are much less likely to fall behind and feel like you have no idea what the prof is talking about. So if you are walking into your lecture class with no filing system in place, you haven't read the material, and so you're hearing all of these concepts for the first time, what you are doing is asking your brain to create the filing system at the same time as it's taking in all of this new information and trying to process it. And this is often just too much. Given your brain's limited attentional resources, this usually means you feel constantly behind while you're taking notes in class, and you're likely missing key pieces of information as you choose to focus on either processing what the prof is saying or creating that filing system in real time. Now, I know life happens, you're juggling a lot. There may be times when you aren't able to read the whole textbook chapter before class. But at least flip through and take a note of the general structure. At least introduce some of the key concepts to your brain before walking into class. Even that little exposure can give you a little bit of an edge and help you process what your prof is saying a little bit more quickly. The second thing for before that lecture, and I know it may seem basic, but come prepared. Double check your bag before heading to class. Do you have your notebook or your pen or your pencils or your highlighters, whatever it is you use? Or if you're using a tablet, do you have your device and is it charged, or do you have your charger? Just make sure that you are ready, because even if you are able to find a classmate who will share a piece of paper and a pencil with you when you forget, this is going to really elevate your stress levels going into class and make it much more difficult for you to focus and actually learn during that class period. So come prepared, get settled, and you'll really make the most of that class. All right, so let's move into during the lecture when you're actually taking those notes. First, as tempting and easy on the brain as it is, do not simply copy down what's on the slides. The reality is most profs these days provide students the slides either before or after class. So the stuff that's on the slides is the easiest to fill in later and probably the least important to get down in the moment. So what should you be writing down? Well, use the slides as a guide. Oh, right now we're talking about this topic. Or, oh, I see those are 3 key concepts I need to know. Write down the key concepts, but don't copy down the word-for-word definitions for each of those. You can go back in and fill that in later. If you try and copy down those definitions, you will not only get behind in your note-taking, but you will miss how the professor is explaining or building on those concepts during the lecture. So now that you've freed up your brain space by not copying down that 30-word definition, actually listen to what your prof is saying. What are they emphasizing? What examples are they giving? How are they connecting this week's material with last week's material? Focus on taking notes on those extras, those things you're only getting live in class and that you can't go back and look up or fill in later. Another benefit to actually being able to listen to your prof rather than copying down slide content, you'll actually notice when you're confused or when you have a question, rather than just being in a perpetual state of note-taking catch-up panic. And that brings us to number 2, which is ask questions in the moment. If you wait, you will forget, at least until the night before the exam when you realize, oh shoot, I still am confused about this. So raise your hand. Some things you might ask. Can you explain that again? Can you give another example? Now, how is that concept different from this concept? Not only will asking questions help your learning and the learning of your classmates, but your prof will take note of your engagement. And that is always a good thing. So now that we have our notes taken, the lecture is over, let's move into what to do after. Processing your notes after the lecture is over is where a lot of the learning and study benefit happens. So stay with me here. First, see if you can get a class partner for each course you're in. Make a habit of doing a quick check-in with this partner right after class for 5 or 10 minutes to compare your notes. Did they write anything down that you missed? This is your chance to add it to your notes. Do you have different understandings of the same theory or the same concept? This is your chance to go ask the professor and clear things up. A bonus of this exercise is that it gives you a chance to see how others take notes differently from you and be able to identify things that you like and maybe want to incorporate into your own note-taking style or strategy, and also things that maybe you want to avoid. We can learn a lot from each other. The second thing to do after that lecture is over is go back in, ideally that same day, and fill in any of those definitions or lists that you avoided writing down during the lecture. And finally, now that your notes are complete, go back through and asterisk anything that you are confused about or you have questions about. Take some time to look these up in the textbook or online because often that can clear things up. But if it doesn't, definitely reach out to your professor now rather than waiting until right before the exam. Now, if it's something simple, an email to your prof is fine. But if it's something that's maybe more involved, do be brave and go to those office hours because you'll get so much more out of it. And I promise, profs are not scary. They love it when students stop in and want to chat about the course. Now, one other bonus tip for note-taking, if you want to practice these skills before heading into class or before your next term, try using content from YouTube videos or podcasts. Often these informational forms have very little visual distraction, and that will force your brain to organize the material, pick out what is most important to write down, and start to keep your note-taking at a pace that will let you keep up and make the most of live lecture content. Practice in this way and you will be amazed at how much more easily note-taking becomes when you are in that live lecture class. And that is it. If you haven't already and you found this video helpful, make sure to smash that subscribe button for more college-crushing, stress-busting strategies, and I will see you all next time.